I'll be quiet.
No, I already started recording because fuck this shit. You are the worst. Okay? So yeah. Hey guys, it's me. Very annoyed Pokemon Javier HD. Because this guy is the worst to record with.
I'm not the worst.
Yes, you are. That's it. You're literally the worst. Oh, go. You can do your intro while I'm still eating, and then immediately has to tell me that he's eating what, Charleston Chew, and then he had to tell me it was frozen as a last note as I started the intro the first time. So fuck this guy. Well, it's not even the first time. Hold on, we already did this, but it was a 2-hour version. So, haha. Try number 2.
Okay, so to be fair on my part, I try to get like cues for Jarrett, and the self cue in my mind for Jarrett to start his intro is like he's like there and he's like.
Okay, yeah, I started to train you with that. I actually did that on purpose so that you would know. But this time, I was like, oh no, he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, he didn't do it, so I'm like, okay, I could just say this. And he's like, hey guys!
But yes, since we... Okay, whatever. I'm not even gonna introduce him.
Number 16 power rankings. Hey guys, what's going on? Number 16, what is it, Jarrett?
No, so this is the Hive Weedle post-draft power rankings. I am alone this time because he is incompetent, so he doesn't get an introduction. It's the same guys that's been in the other videos, so I mean, he'll be in the Hive server soon, I'm sure, so he can annoy all of you instead of just me. But number 16 on my list, since I'm sure you guys that are watching at home just can't wait, it's gonna be Phil. And Jarrett, what do you think of about that team? Well, Jarrett, the Edmonton Oil Carps, Phil's team here, is very interesting because it puts an all-new definition to bird spam in that it's got 4 flying types in Togekiss, Aerodactyl, Xatu, and Swellow, which unfortunately for this team though just leads it to have quite the Bolt Beam weakness here. We have Empoleon further weakening on the electric side. We have Shelgon and Shaman on the ice side, and it's just, you know, when you already have 5 or 6 Mons out of an 11 Mon team, that's just hard to get around. Like I think that's gonna really set this team back. There's a lot of solid Mons on this team, that's for sure, but I mean that's just glaring. So you're gonna really get, you know, hammered with that, and it's, you know, at least when you're ignoring the flying types, the rest of the Mons, you know, I think it's, you know, solid combination of them. I mean, like, Shelgon has its value, so I'm not going to discount that, but you know, it really hits you in the face with there's 4 flying types, and I think the reasoning behind that is because I guess, you know, there's some fighting and ground weaknesses when you look at the other non flying types, and especially when you're looking at the Heatran, Terrakion, Empoleon, and Mega Absol, like, they're all weak to fighting. So how do you patch it up? More flying types, I guess. And so I think that, while, you know, it might have some intention and some you know, rationale behind it, I don't think there's enough. So it's just, it has to be Team 16. Honestly, like, I'm not even looking at the rest of the team. Like, it's the 4 flying types don't really synergize well together. So that's just a huge issue. And so yeah, that's number 16 team. Jarrett, what about your number 15? Well, Jarrett, I'm glad you asked. Are you gonna actually join? Or you actually want to say anything about the Phil's team, since I know you have an opinion? Or are you actually there? I don't actually know.
I'm here.
Are you eating?
No. I was.
You sound so like not there.
I was. I'm just letting you do this because I was so.
Okay, you know, yeah, fine. Clearly,
so,
this is a solo one.
No. Here, so Phil, kind of like what Jarrett said, flying spam. You took it to a whole new level. But I don't know. You don't have the greatest flying types for it. I could see like Togekiss, Mega Aerodactyl. Yeah, sure, that's a great one. I would say as a flying spam, but I don't see it, man. And if you're gonna go flying spam, just might as well just do mono flying at this point. Like, just commit, you know, go balls deep in it. Yeah. Do something with Mega Absol. I like Mega Absol, so go ahead and do it. I'm not gonna take up Jarrett's precious air or time anymore. So Jarrett, what's 15?
Glad you asked, Jarrett. Well, number 15 is going to be, as I am gonna slightly elongate this because my phone just freaked the fuck out where that's my list is. Number 15, and I don't remember it from because it was like 2 hours ago when we last revealed this. So
okay, guys, so number 15.
It's Kells and the Peoria Prinplups. God, I messed it up the first time too. Tristan, why don't you take the lead on this one? What say you about this team?
We actually differed on this team quite a bit because I feel like it doesn't have the kind of defense that it needs, being that it has 4 rock weak mons, that it doesn't have the removal necessary, that it think that like people will be able to take over its deep offensively rather, because you basically spend turns either defogging or boosting or synthesizing with stuff like Venusaur. So it's like, I think that's basically what this team is. I don't think that it has the presence to take on an onslaught of offense if people play against it right. What about you, Jared?
So I know it's you pointed out rock as a weakness. The one that jumped out to me was flying, because at least when I'm looking at Mega Venusaur, obviously its 2 weaknesses, thanks to Thick Fat, only become flying and psychic. But Jirachi is the only flying resist here, and I think that's going to be an issue, especially with Mega Venusaur and Buzzwole both being higher tier mons that are both weak to flying. So that can be an issue, and the defense, while I don't think it's as bad as you may feel it is, like I think it still has some solid merit to it in that there's now 3 flying types instead of the 4, but these actually can synergize with each other because of how Mantine covers the Gligar, and then in turn Gligar's not weak to rock like the other 2 are, and then it's also immune to the electric. So I see the interactions there with the defense, as well as then adding in a Mega Venusaur into the mix, and Buzzwole can join that as well for a variety of different resistances, and they all can boost or synthesis. So that's really cool, along with Comfey. So there's a lot of recovery going on, and Kyurem also. So a lot of recovery, 3 defoggers and a rapid spinner. Wait, did Comfey get defog? We talked about this already. Did it? I don't remember. But regardless,
yes,
okay. So there you go. There's 4 defoggers and a rapid spinner, and so it just gives options.
Does Buzzwole get defogged?
No, I don't think so. But
time to check.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't. But it's it allows for, I think, some comfortability in switching. I don't know if that's actually a word, but there's some comfort in switching. And I know that, like you said, it's kind of rock's weak, but it's not, I think, something that will be the biggest hindrance. To me, the biggest hindrance will more so be that the offense is kind of slow, especially like the big hitters that are going to live more than one hit, being like a Diggersby or Buzzwole or Kyurem. Like, that's the main power of the team, but they're all on the slower side, and then Luceflon's pretty frail and is really only speed above 100. Jirachi can do many things, so that's obviously a nice, but Jirachi seems like it's going to have to patch up the weaknesses for the rest of the team, whether it be the rock typing you said or the flying typing I said. So I think that's where this team kind of falls short. So that's why it becomes my number 15 team. And did you find out if it gets defog, or how long did it take you? You took a while on Comfey. You said you were looking at Buzzwole.
I didn't want this. Well, no, Buzzwole doesn't get it.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yeah, Comfey gets it. If you're talking about how long it took me last time, I just didn't want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know what you were doing. You must have been messing around or something. But now that we're messing around, let's move on to the number 14 team, which is going to be Keegan and the Olympique Flagon. I don't know if it's just Olympic or Olympique, but I'm gonna say Olympique because it piques my interest. But
Olympic Q.
no, I'm never calling it that. But okay, well, it doesn't really pique my interest if I'm gonna be honest, because this yes, the last like 5 Mons just made this team so like less interesting to me. It probably helps round out some things, but Almamola, Umbreon, Chansey is disgusting, obviously, but like Alolan Raichu, odd fit in this team. I'll let Tristan expand more on that because he pointed out, and I didn't really notice it until he pointed out last time. And this team lacks power because it's mostly focused on either having really fat stuff or some interesting setup mons, along with Klefki to support both sides of that. And so, while I think it can win games for sure, like it's not like this team isn't necessarily like a really bad team by any means. I think it's just and as far as the draft goes, I don't know that this team is really doing you much favors because I think this team's just gonna be all about Keegan having to prep it and play it on point because this team to me is just top 8. Like it's literally in my mind, the best way to play this offensively is just set up screens, and then set up, go from there. But if you want to play it more defensively, then yeah, you're just going to be Almamola, Umbreon, Chanseying it up. And that's just, they're both sides of those are taunt bait. So, not a big fan. And the wall breaking, the best on this team without having actually set up is really the Mega Pidgeot. So, which it can break walls because of Hurricanes being so strong, but it's not really what you want in your main wall breaker, at least in my opinion. So, what say you, Tristan?
Get rid of Alolan Raichu. It doesn't belong there because like Mew and Thundurus cover everything. Like it covers the typing. So you got Electric type in Thundurus. You got the Psychic type in Mew. Okay, that's settled. Okay, the speed. Thundurus outspeeds. Okay, what about the coverage? You get the exact same coverage minus Surf. Like, come on. Like, Mew even gets Surf. But it's like, come on. I don't get the coverage. Like, I don't get Alolan Raichu here at all. Like, Stoke Spark Surfer, maybe. Like, okay, what, are you going to go for Volt Tackle? Like, that, I don't understand it. I just don't think it fits at all on this team. On top of that, I look at it, I don't think that if I look at the team, I don't think that Chansey really fits the team well. Or I guess you could throw Umbreon, but I'd rather have Umbreon than Chansey every day of the week on the team. I don't think that those two fit together well. I don't think that I don't think the team is just kind of meshing together the way I would like a team to fit. So that's what I say. What about number 13? Right?
Yes.
Do you have anything else to say?
No, I think we're good. 13, right next to it, it's actually going to be Paralyzer and the Pittsburgh Celesteelas, where this team, I know we talked about this earlier, but reminded you a little bit about Owen after all that Almamola and Umbreon talk. So you can go first. And what do you think about this team?
Rip Owen. The only thing missing is a Piloswine, but Owen would really appreciate that. It just brings it to your eye, man. It's just I have to be strong for Owen. Basically, when I look at the team, I think the first 3 Mons makes the team, and I think that's a general concept for a whole draft. The first 3 Mons make the team, and on top of that, like these are 3 amazing Mons and Victini, Clefable, Gyarados. I do not think the rest of the team ends up beating the team of what he was probably looking for. I don't think that this ends up working as a team that ends up doing well for what he initially, for probably what would make this team better. I think like when you look at it, the paper of it, there's some great Mons like Tangrowth, Donphan, Crobat, Xurkitree, like Medicham. Like these Mons are great, but I just don't think they mesh together. I don't think they support Victini, Clefable, or Mega Gyarados. and that's where it just stands. What about you?
Yeah, I think like there's some solid mons amongst the group, but I don't see the synergy really, in the sense that I mean the defensive steel type probably would have been really nice for this team, but you have Durant, which I guess I can't really talk shit about that because I did the same thing in my draft, but it's definitely leaves a lot to be desired, because while you have some really good mons, like the hazard removal is Donphan, Crobat, Articuno, but Articuno you really don't want to run hazard removal because you're already going to take 50%, and then they both are weak to ice, which, I mean, honestly, this team doesn't really deal with well in the first place, so, you know, you're going to have to switch in Victini and Megaros on those, as well as fire, so it's just, there's some typings that can really cause some problems here. Poison can be an issue, just because there's not much stopping from that spam. There's just not a whole lot of great resistances amongst these mons that can help support the team. So I think you're definitely right saying that, you know, there's a good core at the beginning, but then there's not really much support. And I'm not a big fan of Xurkitree and Medicham both on this team, because they're both wall breakers that you wish had more speed, but since they don't, they kind of fill the same role. Although the typings differ, I think that, you know, you're gonna use one or the other most of the times, and you're limiting what you're gonna bring. And there's just not there's bulk in Clefable, you know, Tangrowth, Donphan, and, you know, Articuno, but they get limited by, most likely you're playing with hazards, I would think, most of the time. And then in addition, your other things that have some natural bulk, like Victini and Mega Gyarados, they, you know, generally are going to be your offensive core here. So Tauros, Durant, they kind of serve the same purpose in my mind, at least, because they're around the same speed and they are both just solid physical attackers. So I think there's definitely some issues with the team that will come into play, and that especially Articuno's not going to get any use, which really depresses me, at least in my mind. Like, it's not going to do anything great in most matchups, which I think it has potential. It's just obviously rocks hinder it so much. So this team does not help out poor Articuno, which saddens me very much. And I think that at 13, it's kind of weird seeing a team with, like you said, a top 3 that are probably really solid, especially, you know, comparing them to a lot of others, but it's just the team did not fill out as either of us would probably have liked to see. So
something else I noticed, that it only has 2 rock setters and no other have.
No, that's something I do all the time, so that's not surprising. I wouldn't notice it, but I never pick that many. So yeah, Donphan and Clefable. So that's not really. Yeah, you're not really putting as much pressure on the other person as probably the other person will for you. So definitely something that will hinder. But after that, we have number 12.
Are we on 12 or 11? We're
on 12, bro. Look at the
16, 15. I mean, you're like how on the Discord screen it covers basically what is it covers your notepad.
Well, well, that's not how.
Okay, 12.
We're on 12.
We're on 12.
It's Snivy.
Okay, where is he?
It's on at least my screen now. But
yeah, no, okay.
Rotterdam, Reshiram, Snivy, and I already forgot who went first last time.
I did.
All right, then. Oh, great, because I'm gonna give the truth about this team, and you're gonna because you slandered it last time. This team, I really like this team actually, but it's number 12 because of the mons themselves are pretty underwhelming, but the synergy I really like. So you have some great revenge killing options in Infernape and Jolteon and Alolan Persian. You have some great wall breaking options in Haxorus and Hoopa Unbound. Just like immediate power, not even needing to set up, but obviously they have those options. Then you have some nice T-Fog and spinning options in Florges, Gliscor, Decidueye, and Blastoise. You have a couple nice rockers, but it'd probably be better to have more than just Gliscor and Mega Aggron as your rockers, but you also do have the Weezing of for Toxic Spikes, so that's pretty nice. And then you have just you have a plethora of setup options in Infernape, Decidueye, Haxorus, and Gliscor, along with the Parting Shot being able to support it, as well as you have Cleric support from the Florges. So I think there's a lot of nice pieces going on here. It's just, I think that the Infernape and Jolteon are pretty frail. Haxorus is not the bulkiest, so setting up can be difficult at times. And then Hoopa Unbound, just everyone brings a U-turn, so it's gonna get killed that way, generally speaking. But you have many options, and I really like just the many options that come with it, as well as a solid speed tiering, at least in my opinion, and just the many ways that this team can go, because it doesn't have to be offensively like just hyper offense by any means. It doesn't have to be fully defensive, so you can get a nice balance or whatever is best for the matchup. What about you, Tristan? What do you think?
The team on paper is pretty great, to be honest. Like, or I don't want to say great because that's a strong word for someone at number 12, really. But I think on paper it's good. If you look at prep against some of these other teams, it's like you're gonna look at an almost underwhelming team to prep for, to be honest. Hoopa Unmon is kind of there. I respect the last pick, but I don't respect it at all because Hoopa Unmon is just an Unmon. The biggest thing with this team, I love the Mega Aggro. I think you got it for great value at pick 11 or 10 rather. It got you what you needed. You were able to get stuff that you thought that you needed the 9 picks before it. Then I would look at it. It's like, did you really need some of this stuff at that point? Like Florges round 2, Jolteon round 3. Don't you think that you could probably win something a little bit better, like a better fairy type at 2, or a better, like just overall better mons to substitute? I think overall it works pretty good together. The only thing I would say is that, or another thing I would say rather, is that I feel this team relies too much on Persian being like Parting Shot into something else to help it win games, or like to help like close out the game rather. But that's just what I think. Anything else, Garrett?
No, I mean, we covered the right opinion and then yours, so that's fair. But I mean, for as much praise as I can give this, it's like I think everything works well together. It's just the parts themselves can be underwhelming many times when you actually get into it. So that's just I think this can play above the at least value of the mons in many situations. So that's at least I always appreciate that. But on to number 11, we are going to Seaton and the Lehigh Valley Phantoms at number 11. What are your thoughts here?
Okay, so I look at the team. It's like, okay, I like Lopunny, I like Tornadus, I like Skizort, I like Gardevoir. But then I don't know what Celebi does. And then like you're probably going to see Muck and Milotic most of the time. You're not going to see Volbeat, Kabutops, or Palossand most of the time. I think this is a very, like, you look at the team as like, okay, I'm expecting these 8 Mons to come out. Like, the things I like about teams is like, okay, if you draft the right team, then you're going to be like, okay, any of these 11 Mons could come. But with this draft, I think is that, okay, the first 8 are most likely to come other than the last 3. I think that kind of hinders the team, especially when I don't see Celebi's value here, but I know that you have a differing opinion over that. And what is that opinion, Jared?
Celebi is the glue that holds this team together. Because I don't know why you just don't look at any defensive ideas whatsoever with this team. Like, hello? Like you're touting what Muck and Melodic as the main defensive stoppers. You know, you can throw Scizor in there.
No, what are you talking about? Competitive Melodic. It's offensive.
But Celebi can, I think, help synergize with considering, hey, Melodic is weak to what? Electric and grass? Celebi happens to resist both of those. Wow, what a great synergy right there. So I think that Celebi is basically kind of pigeoned into a defensive role, which is disappointing because of Gardevoir's being there. So I'd imagine that generally speaking, if you want an offensive psychic type, you're probably going to run Gardevoir offensively more often than Celebi, which is disappointing because its value just gets diminished while Gardevoir's is just kind of the same. So you're losing value, I think, in a higher tier mon. But I like that it has, you know, some top end speed there with Lopunny and Tornadus, but then it goes down to, I believe, Zoroark and then Celebi. So it's like it's all right. It's not anything special. I mean, you already mentioned that the last three mons are just kind of there, so I agree with that. They're just kind of there, and so especially, you know, at least for my sake, I'm kind of looking at the top, or the first 8 picks, and you have both Gardevoir and Zoroark who echo one of the other typings from the other mons. Just they're, you know, the more offensive version of those typings. So I think there's kind of a lot of wasted potential there. In that, like, Zoroark and Muck obviously do different things, and same with Celebi and Gardevoir. Like, they can exist together, but I think it's just kind of limiting how they are used. So generally speaking, like, this team feels like it's just going to be Mega Lopunny, you know, Tornti, Scizor, probably, and then you know, Muck, Melodic, and then pick your like, or honestly, it's probably the other 4. It's Lopunny, Tornadus, Scizor, Melodic. Then pick your Psychic type, pick your Dark type most of the times, or you can just bring 2 of each, and then that's going to be like generally, or at least, you know, the top 8 are going to produce at least 5 mons in basically every matchup, and I think that's going to make it a lot tougher. While those are solid mons, you know, your hazard setters are Celebi and Palisand, so it's, you know, mostly going to be Celebi if you even bring him. Then, or in Kabutops, but again, yeah, it's mostly going to be Celebi. Then you have the spinning option of Kabutops, but then then Defog, Torn, and Scizor. So obviously Torn and Scizor are going to come more often, and Volbeat, but I mean, Volbeat's just, yeah, it's shenanigans. But Torn and Scizor are going to be, you know, having to run Defog more, so it's like you're kind of limiting those mons because it seems like this team just has some low tier mons that are just really, really niche mons. Like, they're beyond the sake of just, hey, you can throw them on like half your teams. Like Palisand, just because it's bulky, might be able to, in, you know, more often, especially than Volbeat and Kabutops. But I think the other mons are just so much better that generally they'll have more value, and you're just not gonna really want to bring Palisand. So it's to me, it's just kind of a disappointing team after a solid start. Like, I really like the top 6. I would prefer not to have Gardevoir and Zoroark personally, just to allow Alolan Muck and Celebi to potentially have a more offensive role if the situation calls for it, but that's more to personal preference. Like, I can understand them still working out just fine. But
yeah, I agree with most of that. Again, I just I think this team suffers from having 8 mons more likely to come than all 11.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's just the big thing with the team.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, number
10. Number 10 is going to be Nick and the Tapu Bapus. And this team does have a Tapu, thankfully. But this team, okay, it has a really nice start. It's got the Tapu Koko, it's got the Manaphy, it's got the Mamoswine, it's got the Mega Aerodactyl, Metagross. Like, it's got threats for days. If I keep going down the line, I think even the lower tier mons are very solid mons. But I think the synergy is lacking. And the synergy that I'm more speaking to is that well, hazard removal is Coco and Aerodactyl and maybe Orcorio. So that's not preferable at all. Considering especially Coco and Mega Aerodactyl, you want to run those. You want to run those 4 slots without defog. Like that's really just not going to help you. And then you also have the fact that, well, Coco, Aerodactyl are freakishly fast. Then you go down to Manaphy, and so that's just a huge speed tier that is a big problem. Like I think that most teams don't have a mon that's even nearly as fast as Tapu Koko, so like they don't need to bother with trying to speed creep it other than with Scarfers, which you're already gonna try to outspeed Mega Aerodactyl anyway. So Scarfer covers both in the sense, and then you can just have free reign for anything that's above base 100 to get those extra EVs, or potentially even more beneficial nature for putting in more power and putting a lot of pressure offensively on this team. And so, while the speed tiers are not great, I don't think this really has the bulk to back that up. It has some nice bulk in the Gudra and Chestnut and Metagross, like it has in Manaphy. Like there's mons that are bulky here, but I don't think they're necessarily a defensive core that you really want to rely on, especially with the lack of reliable recovery beyond Chestnut and I guess Orcorio when you're considering the other mons, because obviously Coco and Dactyl both have them, but it's just the defense is really going to be, I think, a hard time because you're going to get worn down really quickly, and you're going to have to depend on just trying to hazard attack your opponent as well. So it'll be like, hey, who can hazard attack first, and then like maybe if they can remove theirs, you really can't back. So it's going to be, I think, very problematic. What about you, Tristan? What do you think?
I think you basically covered everything with that. My biggest thing with it is like, I just don't think it has that synergy that works out for teams that really want to be what this team is maybe aspiring to be. I just don't think this worked out. Like, the glue to the team is Gudra, and Gudra's a good mon, of course, but it's like, you can't, like, it doesn't work if you just try to depend on it every day of the week. It's like, I just don't think this team has what it needs to fit together and mesh well.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I think especially comparing it to the last team, I think you can bring each of these mons, like Orcorio. I'm pretty sure it's like all forms, so that that gives it some utility. But like you can bring any of these mons, unlike the last team where it seemed like for the most part you're just bringing 6 from the top 8. But it's just I don't think they work well together in just being a full and complete team. Whereas a lot of these pieces can work together as part of a team, just not the full and entire team. So that's definitely going to be something that might come into play and really hinder this squad. But
yeah, I'd say so.
With that, I think we're safe to move on to number 9. Which is going to be
that is
Marcus and Boldor Flash, which is right next to it.
Yes. The thing, I really like Marcus's team. I think that its offensive presence is really overwhelming in the sense that people should be scared of it. But like, the biggest thing for me is that he has basically nothing for hazard. Like, nothing appreciates the hazard. Thundi T has to be dedicated to a defog role sometimes, or even then you could have Whimsicott, which is probably the most likely option at that point. I just don't think in general, I don't think that the team kind of meshes together defensively. In this case, like, what I see is that with Marcus's team here, that he has to kind of put all of his eggs in one basket and hope that if he's trying for an all hyper offense team, that he gets his predictions right.
Yeah, I agree that the offense is just has great potential. But then, it does seem like this is going to be a more offensively oriented team for sure. I'm not as concerned as you are about hazards because, Whimsicott's going to be the main defogger. And then there's the other options in Thundurus and Braviary, but obviously, at least for me, on this team, Whimsicott is almost full support. And then Mega Slowbro is really the universal switch in combination with Whimsicott. Like, those two got to work together to switch into stuff and get out, and then just continue to bludgeon the other team with offense to best take over the other team, because this team can overwhelm many of the other rosters. But like the Marowak and Steelix are weird. Like,
yeah, I just like, can you like, why 6 rounds Steelix for 1, and 2, can you just like get rid of them, please?
Like, there's like, at least for Marowak, it's just bad. And then Steelix, at least for the sake of this team, just like, okay, I get the typing at least to like fit with Slowbro, but the only problem is they're literally both the physically defensive mons, and so Steelix kind of doesn't really do anything for me, at least. Like, I get the typing wise, but I think if either of those mons could get traded out for maybe a third and potentially even a fourth mon that could synergize with Whimsicott and Slowbro, prioritizing being the defensive switch-ins, that would be really appreciated. But I guess also, now that I'm looking at it, those are the only rockers on the team, so
yep, that
seems to be the reasoning, and I don't know if that was good enough reasoning for me to have those on the team, so that definitely hinders this team. But at least for me, at number 9, the offensive capabilities put it at least to at least be number 9, be middle of the pack, but the support for that offense wasn't quite there, so I felt that was a safe place to put Marcus and his Bulldor Flash team. But number 8 is next, and for number 8, we are going to go to Sky and his Toronto Gale Wings.
Okay, so you're here. I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay, yeah, I know my internet just fluctuated a little bit, so I heard something going on in the background, but we're good.
Okay.
Sky here has a cool looking team, at least to me. It's got the classic Tyranitar, Exodrill, Stoutland, Sand Core. We've got the Amoonguss Slowbro Regenerator Core. We have Mega Gallade and Salamence as being other huge threats, and I think some solid role players in Licky and Miss Magius. And at least to me, this team I feel is really going to need Rotom Heat to help out, breaking what the Sand Core has issues with, because there are some flying types that generally cause Sand Core issue, because Tyranitar is usually going to be support, in the sense that at the least it's you need to conserve it and be careful with it to keep the sand as a possibility. So while it's obviously a rock type, it kind of gets diminished. So I think Rotom Heat's going to be very important for this team. But a concern for me with that is that Mence and Excadrill, along with Rotom Heat itself, are the hazard removing elements of this team, and they're not really the ones that you want to be doing that. Otherwise, Salamence just you're going to run it defensively generally if you're going to have defog, so that loses all of its offensive potency, and which it's still a solid set. Like, I'm not meaning to say that. It's just then that takes away from one of your options to deal with the flying types and even sometimes the grass types. So that's definitely I think a potential problem area, as well as Slurpuff I think is a bad mon in general. Its only role in my mind is sticky webs, because belly drumming with it is just too hard to really get off effectively and actually sweep. So because it's just too frail. So I would say that you could have gotten honestly probably something cheaper than Slurpuff for a sticky webber, and then just use that to get a better mon. What about you, Tristan? What do you think about this team?
Okay, so I like his team. I think that he has, it's very threatening, and like Mega Late, people be like, oh, it's one of the best Megas in the generation, in League format, because people like just learned about it, it's, and they're like, okay, Sand Core, check, Salamence, check, a good defensive core between Amoonga, Slowbro, and Rotom, check, and then it's like, Slurpuff, Licky Licky, and Miss Magus, I think they all play their own part, and I think they're really good at it. But I think what really makes his team kind of in the middle of the pack, like you were saying, is that it's I think it's kind of reliant on its sand core, because if it doesn't have its sand core, it's just not nearly as threatening as it is. And even with a sand core, if you can trap properly against it, then it's basically almost a non-factor.
Yeah, I agree that it's definitely going to be reliant on that, so that's definitely going to be something that might have to be brought a lot. And so keeping that in mind, though, there are some nice niche mons to fit in to the team with that, Stoutland, Licky Licky, and Miss Magus, but definitely people are going to prep for that sand, and it's at least it seems both of us, if it's it's going to come most of the time too, so most teams might honestly be prepared for that, and their prep for that might prep for the other big threats, and Mega Gallade and Salamence, in a sense that a lot of times flying types or even bulky grass types can kind of handle that. So that's why, at least to me, Rotom Heat fills a nice role, but it's not supported in this team because that's not the focal point. So to me, it kind of falls flat to be the middle, and it's still a nice team. But I mean, most of these teams are really good. Like we've said, there are plenty of good teams. But on to another good team at number 7, and that's going to be the Pittsburgh Huge Powers and
Rio's team, right? So Rio's team is something that you were saying actually fits balance, and I agree with that. And when I look at it, it's like, okay, so I like the bulk on his team. I think Tapu Fini plus Arcanine, or Cobalion, Delmise, Piloswine, Toxapex, they all really work together well. I like it. But the one thing that I kind of don't like is how his team is kind of like hinders itself, because like I said, I don't think that Tyranitar is the best Mega to fit this team. And so when I look at it, I basically see Tyranitar hurting its own mons, especially the core mons being Tapu Fini and Arcanine in the relationship in this team, because Arcanine is clearly one of the more important mons on the team, because it fits every role so well. You just love Arcanine. I know how you feel about it, but it's just other than that, I don't know what Tyranitar does. I love the sticky webs on the team. I love the hazards that he has on the team, but I don't know how I feel about I think his fighting weaknesses are pretty big in the sense, but he actually has the right kind of mons to resist it. But then in the same sense, it's where does Kangaskhan and not Tyranitar, but Golbat fit in this game? And I don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah, those stick out to me for sure, because at least for my sake, you have Defog, Tapu Fini, and Rapid Spin Delmise, which and defog Latios. Which, I mean, I understand if you want another defogger, so be it, but this doesn't really add anything to the team, because this is a mon that's just going to only do that, really, and it's not necessarily resisting anything great for the team itself that Toxpex doesn't already, so Golbat seems like a just odd fit to me, and then Kangaskhan, I feel like it doesn't really do much for the team because it doesn't add speed, and it doesn't add much bulk, so really all it's doing is just, it's technically got Wish, you know, so like it's technically a cleric, I guess, but like that seems like, at least to me, the only reason I can see it being picked. And you did mention fighting, but a lot of teams, it seems, and I've drafted a lot like this too, that are like half the team's weak to fighting, half the team resists it, and this is like the definition of that. So I don't think it's necessarily an issue, because Toxpex can probably take one hit from every fighting type no matter what, so I think that, and there's ways to revenge it with this team, so it's not, I don't see any one particular typing as an issue, but I think like Mega Tyranitar, you know, you said it didn't really fit this team, and I agree, because at least to me the only reason that this is on the team is that it's really the only natural wall breaker on this squad, because this just lacks the immediate firepower, because like without it, like Latios can, you know, wall break, but a lot of times it needs a little bit of assistance in maybe like a choice item or a boosting item just to really punch holes, and you know, most of this team needs setup to really do that, and so that's something that I think is doable, so that, you know, that's why it's at number 7, but it can be kind of, you know, a burden, because you're trying to set up in every game, and if your opponent has a way to stop that, then you're really in trouble, so, because you're just not going to be able to break through teams, at least I feel, and I think that it's a nice team, it's a nice balance between everything. The webs are, I don't think they're needed really on this team, like it's not bad to have it, obviously, and at least Galvantula's usefulness, I think, can be maybe excelled because of not needing the webs necessarily, but they do definitely help in scenarios, because this team, while it has, you know, maybe I would say like 4 fast mon, not even 4, but like only a few fast mons, I think this team has like plenty of bulk to deal with mon, so it doesn't rely on webs, which is nice. And with that, we can move on to number 6, which is going to be Cat and the Mexico City Ludicolos. Which, first things first, gotta get this out of the way. Blissey has no business being on this team. I'm not gonna take credit for Wishy-Washy, but Tristan pointed it out when we did the way too long version of this. Wishy-Washy has no business being on this team. I won't talk too much about Wishy-Washy because I'll let Tristan do that, but Blissey, I have a big issue being on this team, because literally all it does for this team is, what, add another rocker and add like a cleric, like that's it. Like its typing does not help this team really at all. It's being a, you know, specially defensive Pokemon does not help at all. So Blissey is just a wasted pick there. Like there's no reason for it to be on the team. Like I really like covering up the bottom 2 and just imagining that the team is the top 9 picks. And I really like the look of the team. Like it's a lot of huge threats. It's got obviously best wall breaking Mega and Mega Metacham. You've got the huge power potential from Darmanitan and Primarina and Tyrantrum. You have Registeel, that's a nice, you know, defensive glue. Then you have Tornadus, which can, you know, be offensive, be, you know, some more supportive role. Has Superior, which can be, you know, tanky, and it also can become an offensive threat after a Leaf Storm. And you have some nice speed in Weavile, obviously the idea being I assume, Weavile, Mega Medicham to help get rid of those bulky psychic types. And then Nidoqueen can be bulky, can be offensive, and provides both rocks, T-spikes. So I think those are a lot of nice pieces, and I think that Cat should definitely drop those last 2 picks and find ones that can help the defensive core, because I think Registeel can be a solid start, along with then using the mons that he already has in potentially defensive roles, such as the Primarina or Serperior or the Nidoqueen, and even surprise someone maybe with a defensive Tyrantrum. What do you think, Tristan?
Yeah, no, I just don't like. I just don't like the Blissey, or I don't like the Blissey. I don't like the Wishy-Washy. Just please put me out of my misery when I look at them. Like, I don't understand them. Like, why? Like, you have such a perfect team, and you just do this to it. I like the team. Its offensive power is so strong that I think it makes it immaculate. But other than that, I just don't see much purpose between some of his other picks that he put in there. It just, were you like sniped or something? Because I can't explain right now. Like, to be honest, I just can't explain. Like, I like it. I don't like how weak he is to rocks with his defensive, or with his defoggers being Serperior and Tornadus. I'm just kind of, I don't know how to feel about it, because outside of that, then his hazard setters are Nidoqueen, Registeel, and Tyrantrum. He has a powerful team, but I don't think that his team is necessary with Blissey and Wishy-Washy, that he could get better hazard removal with those 2 slots rather than, like, even if you only use 1 slot, use one of those slots for a hazard removal. That's fine, but it's just both of them on the team together, not necessary. I know why, like, Wishy-Washy in its schooled form, it has like base 140, base 120, base 130, stuff like that. It's just still not good though. It's just, I don't want to, I can't say, like, I can't really say anything else on it. It's just, I like his first 9 mons. His other 2, just no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not even willing to say that as a good reasoning to pick Wishy-Washy, because it's still got like base 40 HP or something like that. So it's just meh. And you already have a much better water type that it shares both of its weaknesses with anyway. So there's no real point to having the Wishy-Washy or Blissey, it seems. So drop those, and the team should be a lot better. So. On to number 5, though.
Number 5.
Top 5. And I think that Jay and the Springfield Stallers has quite the interesting looking team here. Well, how do you feel about it?
I like his team. Offensively, I like it. The things I like best about it is how he has Lando and Skizor, and it's like, okay, with these 2 mons, if you don't have the coverage, you have to decide between HP Ice or HP Fire, and at that point, it's like you already lose at that point, because you could be punished by the other one. And even with both of the hidden power typings, it's not like you're still safe at any point, because you still have to go, because you still have to think about a Keldeo that could easily switch into it. And he has a synergy there. I know that he has your favorite mon, Lalic, so that's always a nice little thing. That's why you have him at number 5, of course, right? It's just like, when I look at it, I think he has the offensive pressure with Raikou and his first 3 mons. His first 4 mons, Lycanroc, Duck, it just puts enough pressure. Then I see Musharna at the last point, and it basically just rounds the team because I think that's the best value pick at number 11, especially for when I see in this league, people are prioritizing bulky psychic types. So I think that he did his team justice by getting Musharna at the pick that he did. I think it just really helps him out a lot of places. And the only thing I would have to say, I'm sure you'll touch upon this, so I'll save it for you, is that I don't think that his team matches up against specific typings very well.
Yeah, the one that just immediately jumps out to me is Ghost, and then by extension kind of Dark, but because the only Ghost or Dark resist on the whole team is Keldeo for Dark, and then Savali if you make it the appropriate typing. But like Tristan already alluded to, Savali's trash. I am a.
I said it was. You said it was a great mod.
I am a non-believer in Savali. I know a lot of people started to like it more because it has defog this ever since Ultra, but it's still a bad mon. It can do the job of defogging and getting out. Yes, I granted that, and that's the only role it can ever have because that's the only thing it can do. And you know, at least for this team, it appears to me that it might come often because just purely for the sake of to make it a typing that helps out the other 5. And what I mean by that is, while there's, you know, a good mix of typings on the team, there's not a whole lot of like resistances with the, you know, the bulky mons like Mega Scizor, you know, Seismitoad, Landorus Therian. They have, you know, they're different resistances, but there's not like a whole lot of them, and I think that might come into play just because you know, if any mon gets some coverage, then that can really put this team in trouble. And so it's just gonna have to rely on kind of the stats to really bail Jay out there with, you know, just Lando T and Mega Scizor and Seismitoad and Musharna and even Gourgeist being just bulky mons in general, which they very much can be. So obviously, you know, it's number 5 because those mons do have the requisite stats to really be threats. And even though like Musharna and Gourgeist are generally lower tier, they still are threats in their own right. And Lycanroc, Duck, and Mega Scizor provide, along with Mimikyu and Gourgeist, provides nice amount of priority. And like it's like I think this is a nice team. It's got, you know, a lot of nice pieces that can fit together, but I can see, you know, Savali is pretty much going to be brought a lot, I would imagine, because you don't want to run defog on Mega Scizor or Landorus T too much. So, you know, okay, well, let's slap on Savali because this team is, you know, more of a balanced team. It's not going to be too hyper offensive in most cases, but it does have capabilities of doing so. And Tristan did highlight Musharna as a, you know, very valuable pick, which I would echo very much. It's a very good mon, but there's so many good psychic types, so it definitely gets forgotten about. And there are some cool hazard options here with Excelgor and Seismitoad, and then there's Landorus and Lycanroc Duck that usually don't want to run them as much, but still can. So there's a good amount of options here, and I think it's a solid all-around team for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what we got for those months. Do you have any for number 4 now, I believe?
Yeah, number 4 is going to be Mio and his Oklahoma City Thunderous, which I think this is a really cool looking team, honestly. At least I feel it looks pretty unique. I haven't seen anything too much like this, but you have some big threats like Zapdos, Mega Diancie, Kartana, Komao, Landorus, you have Araquanid, and so it's just those top 6 are very scary, especially with Araquanid being able to support the team with the webs, to then even make Exploud an even bigger threat that already can, you know, break through walls very well. You know, even a Shell Smash Turtonator all of a sudden can be fast enough to do things, so that's all really nice, and got some hazard options definitely with the Komao, Landorus, Quillfish, and Bronzong. Defogging, you have the Zapdos and Landorus, but and Magic Bounce for Mega DNC, but it seems, most of the time, I would imagine that Mio is going to be the one that wants to have hazards up and maybe just play with it. And the thing that I guess that I would put as the biggest knock on this is that Bronzong is pretty much a universal switch in for this team, and while there are other mons that can definitely switch into a variety of threats, like Zapdos obviously can be defensive, Komao same. It's just it seems like this team's gonna usually lean more offensively, so you're gonna usually want Zapdos and Komao to have the freedom to be offensive more often than not. So Bronzong kind of just gets put into the, hey, you're the team support and switch into just about everything until I can run over the team with the offense. So at least that's how I see it. How do you see it, Tristan?
Yeah, I basically agree with you for the most part with it. When I think of it, I look at his team and I'm like, this is what I think about when I see versatility, because I think that he has the tools to make the right team, being that you look at it and he has this. I think he has the mons to support his Bronzong. When you look at stuff like, okay, people are going to go for fire and dark against it. Okay, so you could switch in Komao, you could switch in Diancie. Zapdos can't even do it. It's like, I think he has the I think he has the mons to really just round his team to the point where it's like he just is really set with his team. I think this is one of the more teams that's like, okay, you have to worry about his whole team. The fact that he could bring probably 10 of those minus Turtonator, because I don't know what Turtonator's doing, to be honest. I'd rather probably bring Komao every game for a Dragon type, but it's just like Turtonator, I'm sure Mio is probably capable of making making that do the work that he wants it to do. Because this is the Hive we're talking about, so it's like I don't think people draft without a purpose, especially when we look at something along the lines of mons that are usually lower class tiers, such as Musharna and Turtonator. I think that Mio, or most of the Hive players, to be honest, is they take their picks that may seem unorthodox, but they're probably gonna make do with what they got. And I think Turtonator is probably gonna be one of those bigger mods that's probably gonna do something that people don't expect, or it's at least gonna be Age of Potter. Either one's fine.
Yeah. So definitely. I mean, you say you expect a good amount out of these Hive players, but we already saw Phil's team, so maybe the expectations need to be turned down a little bit. But yeah, definitely a solid team. Seemed very threatening. So definitely excited to see how that ends up working out. But we will move on to the number 3 team, which is going to be Turbo and the Phoenix Midnights. So what?
Okay, so Turbo, I like the team. I look at Zygarde, I look at Mega Pinsir, and I'm like, okay, Turbo here is just gonna be the big dick in the locker room here, just swinging about. You're like, oh shit, that just happened, and you're like, okay, so what are you gonna do against it? But then you look at the rest of the team, it's just everything supports each other so much. It's I look at it, I'm like, okay, it's just I got confused by Sylveon and Rabombi, but they both play 2 different roles. They both play great roles for this team. I look at stuff like Tentacruel and Roserade. They both play different roles. They play good roles for the team. He has great hazard removal for his Mega Pinsir, which people really expect to have if you're going to have a Mega Pinsir. Skarmory and Tentacruel is really great for it. Even Blaziken, for that fact, is really good for it. I mean, it can be. It not the best. But I mean, Blaziken is a great mon in general. I loved it in my Crash League. It did the work that I needed it to do. So on top of that, I just think this team overall, it just screams masculinity. So, what do you think?
The team screams masculinity with nice Sylveon Rabombi. All right.
Yep.
Well,
just
okay.
Masculine. You're saying that like you don't Snorlax.
I like this team for different reasons, not because it screams masculinity, because I don't.
I'm not saying no.
I don't see that, but and well, also Blaziken on Mon, but the real Mon that you should be looking at the bottom.
Right there.
No, that's the Mon you should be looking at. Beheem, that's a Mon that nobody sees coming, and for this team, it's amazing. I think that Beheem is an amazing pickup as a lower tier Mon, as well as towards the end of the draft, because it's a very threatening Mon offensively with that analytic potential, and in addition, it can set up Trick Room for both the Snorlax and the Rhyperior, which is something that is, crazy to think about, because both of those are huge threats under Trick Room with their enormous attack stats and bulk. So that's just something I really hope to see come to fruition, as well as then the webs on the other end of the spectrum can help slow down the opposing team to help Mega Pinsir and Zygarde just rip through the team, as well as Roserade. And then I don't mind, I know, like the two hazard removers, they're both weak to electric, so that's kind of meh, but I'm not a big believer in, you need to have so much hazard removal for Mega Pinsir, because it's generally just comes in once and does what it needs to do. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but I like that the way that this team looks, because it can really provide support to the offensive Mons and the big threats. So obviously Zygarde, Mega Pinsir are going to be the main things you look at, but then Snorlax is a huge threat in its own right. It can help defensively as well as offensively. And then you have Roserade, you can say the same thing, as well as the hazard stacking it can do. And so you've got just a lot of possibilities here with this team, and I would say that at least it would have been nice to fit a dark type over Blaziken, probably, just because the main psychic type switch-ins appear to be, at least typing wise, Skarmory and Beheem, but they both, I would imagine, probably can get hit with other coverage moves very easily and are not the greatest, at least being especially defensive in the case of Skarmory, and then just overall defensive for Beheem is not the best. So that's something that maybe could get patched up, but other than that, I really like the team, how it looks, and I'm very excited to see how Turbo is able to use it.
Yeah, I think it's basically a great assessment that you put out there. So now we go to the 2-in-1 spots.
Yes, and so number 2, we have the Flint Tropius and Shiny Spam here, which has, at least in when you're just looking at a team at first look, I think this is clearly the team that everyone will look at and be like, holy crap, how did we let this happen? Like Celesteela, Mega Charizard X, Suicune, all with Aurora Veil support, just sounds ridiculous, and it'll be very tough to handle, just because they to set up, they don't even need the support from Aurora Veil, so it's definitely huge threats. And then you have other potential threats like Dugtrio trapping just whatever is needed. I don't think necessarily needs to trap any particular type, since it can. This team can deal with steel types generally, at least with the main setup that it has. So Dugtrio's, it's all right on this team. I think it can be used nicely just to trap, certain Mons, not necessarily a certain typing of Mons, just one that maybe has potential to cause issues for a certain setup mon. So I think Dugtrio can be a nice support. And one issue with this team is definitely the hazard removal, because it's just Serena and Rotom, which not the best options, especially with potentially having Hail up. So Serena's Synthesis not going to be as useful, but Uxie and Miltank, solid hazard setup, along with Nihilego and even Dugtrio if you so desire. So there's options there, and a nice defensive backbone if you want to use, say, like Celestial or Suicune offensively when they're generally considered defensive, but you have Uxie, Miltank to kind of cover a lot of things just almost on their own. So I think this is just a solid all-around team that just looks extremely scary. How about you, Tristan?
No, yeah, I just look at this team. I think this is just the whole epitome of. I don't know if I'm using that word right, so that's. I think this is the team that you look at if you're gonna look for synergy, because like Celesteela, Zardex, the Suicune, those are just power. Then you throw Alolan Ninetales in there with a Roar Veil. It's like, bro, what are you gonna do against it? And it's like sometimes you just hold, like you have to put your head down in the field. Like, I'm not gonna do anything about this. But then like you look at it, it's like, okay, sometimes it's like 4 Mons isn't that bad. But then you look, it's like, okay, Nihilego, and then like Nihilego and Dugtrio really help the team with some weaknesses there. But then like you look further, it's like, okay, this team isn't just offensive. Like, it could be even more defensive with Uxie and Miltank and Rotom to a couple degrees. It's like, it's just, this team altogether is just, it looks really good. The only thing that I would say is that it's kind of susceptible to hazard stack in the sense because Serena is not the best. What else was hazard?
Rotom.
Is that it? I thought there was 3. Okay.
No. Charizard.
Oh yeah, the default Charizard question mark.
I've used Mega Charizard as default, so I can't talk.
And you get paralyzed that game.
Yeah. It was meant to take on Galvantula, and instead I got paralyzed 3 times in a row, so the Galvantula ended up beating me.
Yeah, so I think that's just the world telling you don't do this. You know, so it's like, at that point, I just really think this team fits really well together. Rotom, I really like on the team, especially if it's Defogger, which it looks like it's going to be the Defogger of all of the games it's going to be a part of. So with that, I like this team together. I think it just does so well. The only other thing I would say is that maybe the hail damage hurts the team, whether you want to run leftover Steela or Suicune. Like, you're negating your own health, then you're hurting your own Charizard, especially if it has hazards up. That means that your switch-ins are even more limited unless you bring Roost, which just makes you kind of passive as a Charizard, sometimes, in some cases as well. But like when you draft a Alolan Ninetales with the team, I think you know exactly what you're doing. So you are willing to take that risk and hope for that you get the big reward in that W that I'm sure that you're going to get.
Yeah, so with that though, we can now move on to at least my number 1 team, even though, like I said, the last team we just talked about, at least when you're just like glancing at the teams, I could very much see an argument for that being the number 1. But my preference is going to be Johnny GB and his Oregon Ducklets. What do you like about this team?
Garchomp, Mega Gardevoir, Necrozma, Scolipede. Just put them in the books, and that's the game, basically. Like, you could speed pass, you could spike stack, you have the great offense to go with it. It's just, Necrozma could be almost anything. It's just, this team works so good offensively. And stop right there, because it gets better, because you have Oregon 2, you have Swampert, and you have Cofagrigus as your kind of your defensive backbone, and like those synergize really well together. So it's like you're working really good there. And then it's like you have kind of wild cards and like Incineroar, Virizion, Diagonal. Like, those could be multiple different roles. and it will still work out well. And be like, so I think this team is just a really good team drafted by Johnny GB here, and I just think like there's so much that this could do. Like you could run offensive or defensive Garchomp, you could run offensive defensive Gardevoir sometimes because it has a really good split F stat. So it's like, okay, you could do that. Necrozma could do anything you want. Oregon's kind of going to be a defensive mon more or less of the time, but you could run some offense. Like, okay, here, let me try to find something. If you're playing Snivy, which I know that you have to play Snivy, then here, just trace that Toxic Heal off that Gliscor and see how cancerous P2 could really be. You know, it's like there's so much stuff that you can be able to do, and it's just like this team is just very, very, very scary in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, its versatility is great, and so at least to me, what made it different from and above the Flint Tropius was that it's definitely gonna be the speed. The speed is gonna be a big separating factor for me in that you have that Baton Pass potential, you have the Trick Room potential from Porygon 2 and Cofagrigus, and Necrozma, I believe, and Mega Gardevoir. Like you have so many different ways to speed control, because both the hazard removal leaves a lot to be desired, but I think that to me that separates it, along with just like you stressed, so many different ways to go about this team, and Speed Pass is a huge threat with this team, especially with the Mega Gardevoir, Garchomp, Necrozma. Like there's many ways to go about it, and so I think Scolipede honestly is going to be just so good on this team, because so many people are going to fear that baton passing speed, but it can be a huge threat on its own, being offensive and with being a Z user. So definitely huge threat, and I feel very deserving of being the #1 team of Weedle. So with that, we have all these 16 teams, but I know Tristan here wants to hear, well, what's the opinion on his team that he made in our best of the rest. And so, as a reminder to everyone else, I will quickly let you know that team was Azumarill, Conkeldurr, Magnezone, Forretress, Rotom-Mow, Mudsdale, Mega Altaria, Latios, Entei, Vaporeon, and Salazzle. And so I do like this team. It's definitely it's a more bulky offense build, which I'm not a huge fan of for myself, but as a team, it definitely can feel like a very safe team, in the sense that you can switch into many things with the natural bulk that most of the mons have, and it does have very threatening mons offensively. And I feel like, at least with the teams that drafted, it's in the middle of the pack, so I'd put it at like 8.5, which is directly middle of the pack when you're considering 17 teams. So considering this was a team drafted from scraps, I think that's more than you can really ask for, in all honesty. I mean, he didn't even get the opportunity to draft so many of these mons, so I would say that's really solid for the circumstances.
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool that you would put me at that spot, because it's like, this is going off a team that I didn't get to draft with people. That this is just like a team that people didn't want, and this is what I made, and it's just basically what people would consider the scraps of the draft. And it's like, to be able to pull something together like that and be able to put it in there, I think at that point at 8.5, like directly in the middle, I think that's super cool to have right there. So,
and with that will conclude the Hive Weedle power rankings post draft, and we've been talking for plenty long. So say bye.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you for watching. If you actually made it this far, bye.